Welcome to Akhand Vidyashram, the first institute of impeccable wisdom. Let's discuss what carbohydrates, the hydration of carbon atoms, and is the first molecule of the plant kingdom for every living being. Now, as I talk about Rigved, the descent of atom element is what is explained in Rigved, and that is gods and goddesses of Vedas represent the various atoms, element, molecules of nature. Indra, the king of God, is the rain god of water. With thunder, lightning and rain, all the essential elements came down from the cosmos to the ocean. Biological life started in the warm, saline waters of the ocean. All the requirement of life came from the ocean, is maintained by ocean, was expelled into the ocean, and that's how unicellular organisms started, and from there we have become multicellular organisms, the human being, over a period step by step. And the process of rising element is the Sagar Manthan or Samundar Manthan, or the process of churning a primordial ocean. Now come to the question of the first thing which comes to my mind is the mineral kingdom. Atoms, element, molecules, compounds, cells, tissues, organs, 10 organ system, and integrated human being is the perfect being, which is universal consciousness to pedant the human being. We can experience water, sodium, potassium, calcium, other elements within the human body. Anybody who can experience all the 14 elements within the human body is in tune with universal consciousness, would not have any difficulty in correcting any problem. He can prevent all the problems step by step with atoms, elements, molecule, compounds of the plant kingdom itself. It doesn't have to be a non-vegetarian, it doesn't have to take anything, everything is there in plant kingdom. That's what I'm going to talk about the next. Second thing, genesis, biochemistry of the chemistry has evolved from atom, element, molecule and organ. Synthesis of biochemical compounds in plant is the first process which starts. Now the plant kingdom, as I told you, atom, element, molecule, compound, cell, tissue, organ. We can experience every aspect of the human biochemistry within the human body. To experience A to Z of the entire universal knowledge is available within the human body itself, and that is what is important from mineral kingdom to plant kingdom to animal kingdom. And the most evolved being in the entire universe is a perfect human being who is in tune with universal consciousness. Only a perfect human being who is in tune with universal consciousness has all the knowledge, data, information, knowledge, wisdom of the entire universe at his fingertips, with divine mathematics, divine physics, divine chemistry, divine biochemistry, as well as biology, as well as human anatomy, physiology, biochemistry and psychology. Only a human being can do it, nobody else can do to that extent of consciousness, with which the universal consciousness could be experienced by any person within. No wonder all the data, information, knowledge of the entire universe is given only by a human being by experiencing that within their own human body. Now comes to the question of how the life started in the beginning. As I told you, it was the water, 61.803% in the water, and all the mineral, they started life uniting together as a molecule compounds. And the first thing which appeared was not a seed, was only a spore. And spore were formation only chemically within that structure, and in this picture you can see that was the first plant thing as a unicellular organism as a spore, and then further development into male and female, and then ovulation, asexual to sexual, and then further development. Now you can see the signs of spores. A reproductive cell can develop into a new individual cell without fusion with another reproductive cell that is independent as such, that is spore. Spores thus differ from gametes, which are reproductive cells that must fuse in parts to give rise to a new individual life. Spores are agents of asexual reproduction, whereas gametes are agents of sexual reproduction. Spores are produced by bacteria, fungi, algae and plants as such. And once that is understood, you know how mineral kingdom became plant kingdom as spores first, that particularly in bacteria, fungi, algae and smaller plants, and how they become multicellular and then evolved over to what perfect human being is all about. In this picture you can see all the process of spore to the seed formation and how the gametes came, angio and female. Angio is the smaller one, female is the larger one. That is also something I understood in the basic itself. You know that child would get everything from the mother, not the female, because that cell is bigger. All the energy comes from the mother, not from the father. Father only gives you genetic. That's the structure. Even at this stage is only small is this male and big is the female. And that's how the process started, how the fusion starts, and the flowers come, how the fruits come, how the seeds come, how the life starts thereafter. Is a very interesting thing, the divine nature. And once this is understood by every student of the world, every human being in the world, then the differences in opinion, rich, poor, light, not, will disappear once for all. That is the objective with which I am making the videos, perfection from A to Z, free of cost for everybody and just for love of it. And as the time has evolved, in the smartphone, just 5,000-6,000 rupees, you can get all this information free of thing. You need to buy books. All you need to do, understand concept and then do the research further and prove it to the world. It's a finally Divyank which is important. With Divyank, all the correction of divine mathematics, divine physics, divine chemistry, divine biology and divine molecular will appear. Once that is done, everything else will fall into the place clearly. Now come to the asexual creation of the plants. Without the seeds under the ground, seeds were created later. Now one example which I give it, asexual creation of banana, or the second example could be onion. And in both the cases you find in banana the spiral stem has got 10 layers and in onion it's again 10 layers. That again shows how their 10 stages of development come further. The whole concept of 22 by 21 into 10 stages is very clearly seen in bananas and onion itself and of course other plants. And how in both you start from spores, you grow from the same thing, then how it can develop into further to find leaves, flowers, fruits and seeds for further growth. And that is a beautiful example in these two. Now in this particular process, same thing which I explained. Now come to the regrowth. Now comes the question of divine mathematics coming to play a very important role. And you can see it very clearly, and I have written Pingala Fibonacci sequence because the first person who described Fibonacci sequence was Pingala as a 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, 55, 89, 144, etc., etc., etc. And that is a description of the plant kingdom as you go. Now how the growth from seeds to plant sprouting process is very clear, and all the process start as a dichotomous division only, and that makes the whole thing. A dichotomous mean 2, 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 16 to 32, 60, 32 to 64, 128 to 56, 512 and 1024. That's the reason the person, human being, is capable of having an IQ of 1024 itself, and that is Sahasrara Chakra. Once that is understood, you know how beautiful is dichotomous division. Down comes this a picture which I show of the tree as such, which has been recorded and accepted by everybody. There is one stem, then 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. It goes in 7 stages, same thing as such. This is a picture from internet used by everybody that also says there is a 7 stages development which is important, which has been recognized by everybody throughout the world. That's why sub-rishis, sub-creations, everything is this. Once you understand the 7 part, then you are very clear. Earth is made of 7 parts, Antriksh is made of 7 parts, heavens are 7, there are 7 days, everything 7, 7. Once that is understood, you know divine mathematics much more clearly. And 1 divided by 7 should be equivalent to 0.14287 only. Then comes to the question of photosynthesis. having developed the plant as such, then sun comes to play a role and sunlight comes. And this picture you can see the plant, you can see the sun, you can see the earth, you can see the water, and this is how the photosynthesis come to play an important role. Now in this particular thing, the plant kingdom has come to have a unicellular organism is going to become multicellular, and in this picture is very clear. There are three parts you can see very clearly under a compound microscope: cell membrane, cytoplasm and nucleus. Under electron microscope you can see 21 parts, and that is where it starts. But there is one part in the cytoplasm which is centrosome, which is made of two centrioles, and these are the two which become one becomes 2 at the time of creation. As a result, 21 parts become 22 parts at that stage. Once that is understood, is very clear. Second thing, after developing that first stage, then it goes to the 10 stages development, and the most beautiful example in the human body is RBC. It starts with 21 micron, becomes 22 micron, 10 stages, finally becomes a mature RBC cell. I think once that is understood, you know the divine mathematics is applied everywhere. Now come to the question of creation of oxygen and light dependent, and that exactly what I've been saying about the science and spirituality have come together to show the one planet which is very close to the sun is Mercury, and it's a direct effect of sunlight at the maximum stage. Maximum heat is to Mercury, and because of maximum heat light dependent, that no wonder there is a 42% oxygen on Mercury, whereas in human life as well as on the Earth planet there is only 21%, because this is because of plants, that is only because of direct heat. And once that is understood, why oxygen becomes the Agni element, and that is the most important part of Rigved itself. And without oxygen there is no fire at all, and I have made that also very clear. So here also oxygen is formed in the plant kingdom as well as every cell, because without that life is not at all possible. Water is also converted into oxygen only, that is what is important. Water is important, oxygen is important, and next we will come to the carbohydrate, which is important. That's we see how the beautiful step by step evolution comes up. Now comes to the synthesis of glucose. We are going to talk about the 7 stages of formation of carbohydrates within the plant kingdom. You can see 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of water put together in the front of sunlight in the plant with the green is converted into 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen. This is a beautiful thing which plant kingdom has done and changed 97% carbon dioxide into 21% oxygen and 78% nitrogen for the next process to be made into proteins, and other things come so that later. I think this is their divine design, has to be understood, and that is what Devanki is all about. Now come to the question. I said 6 carbon molecules of carbon dioxide plus 6 what, as you see the first step, which produce 6 carbon intermediate is formed first, then 6 into triose, which is 3 carbon sugar, then 6 into glyphosate 1,3 biphosphate, then 6 glyphosate 3 phosphate JAPE, then 5 glyphosate, and then reverse this a diphosphate, that is the glucose which we are using as such, and this is the subject of discussion today. Now come to the question of carbohydrate as such. As I said, carbohydrate, hydrate means water, and carbon put together becomes carbohydrate. That is something which I want everybody to understand. Even the words were designed which are self-explanatory, and that is the first biochemical of life as such, and you can see the glucose segment of things within that as such. Now come to the carbohydrate. What are the carbohydrates? Carbohydrates are mature macronutrient in our diet that provides the body with energy, with each gram yielding about 4 calories. These are broken down into glucose, which is the primary fuel for brain, muscles and other organs. That means carbohydrate of 1 gram can produce 4 kilocalories. That's one part. And in the glucose form it is used as a fuel for the brain, muscles and other things. So carbohydrate, the first thing which stands out is glucose, and amount of calories it can give you is 4 kilocalories. At this juncture, let me tell you the next one. I'm going to talk about lipids, and lipids can produce 1 gram can 9 kilocalories. That means 2.25 times more than this. Why, how and others I'll be explaining in the next stage, but understand this is how the knowledge has to be gone, and I want everybody to have this knowledge ingrained in your brain. So please read carefully, concentrate, contemplate and record beautifully in your entire brain, both sensory component, motor component as an autonomic component. As a result, you will be able to produce 8 Hz frequency throughout the brain in all the 1024 parts of the brain with eyes open. That can be done only for a person who is very intelligent, listening carefully and records everything beautifully. Nothing which is impossible or wrong is recorded, and that would become a walking talking encyclopedia as I am talking about. Now comes to the question there. There are 3 main types of sugars or carbohydrate. Simple sugar, such as those found in fruits and additives like your glucose, fructose, etc. Then starches are like those bread and things which are long glucose sector, and the fiber like that found in vegetable and thing which is like cellulose. So simple sugars, starch and cellulose are the 3 things which we are talking about. You are going to see now one by one the carbohydrates which play a very important role. Now comes to the question, there are something called monosaccharides and disaccharides. Mono means single and di means 2, and then you also have a trinity. We are going to see that. Now monosaccharides are 3 in nature, that's why a trinity. You have glucose, you have fructose and you have galactose. You can see the structure of 3 very clearly: glucose, fructose and galactose. In disaccharide also you can see only 3. Either you have maltose, which is glucose plus glucose, or your sucrose is glucose plus fructose, or lactose, which is glucose plus galactose. That is a beautiful combination. And understand monosaccharide and disaccharide. The first one is used is glucose, also fructose, also galactose. But disaccharides also get converted into that, and depending upon the use it is used. So finally it is glucose, but it can also from fructose, can also from galactose, can also come from lactose, sucrose as well maltose. Now come to the question. First glucose is the first molecule, is called aldose. Carbon 6, H12 and O6 is the first one, and its hexagonal structure, and you can see the curves very clearly. Carbonyl group, cell respiration, carbonyl group, etc. This particular picture is very clear. I am not going to detail this. You can read in any book about this picture, is very clear. But remember, it is 6 into water. That's it. 1 carbon and H2O. See, H2O is thing. Then multiply the number of carbons, it will depend. This is hexagonal, is 6. Pentagonal could be 5. Now come to the question of fructose. Is the second carbohydrate is aldose. Is a carbon 6 H12 O6 is the same formula as glucose. There is no difference at all. Only the configuration is different. And once that configuration is different, you make the difference that how that was hexagonal, this is pentagonal in structure, but this is very important to do that. That is very safe as such. No wonder sucrose has got glucose and fructose together. But as a result, it could be very free, because fructose has to be converted into glucose again in liver to be used as a glucose. So any combination which is a combination of glucose plus fructose as a sucrose is much more beneficial than refined sugar or glucose as such, which will increase the sugar level immediately. But this combination would be very gradual and keep it slow and steady growth as such. Now come to the question. Galactose is the third carbohydrate, is aldose. Again 6, 12 and 6 combination is same thing, and you can see the picture in both the things very clear. you can see D-galactose, lactose, and the structure as such. So that way fundamentally monosaccharide of all the three, glucose, fructose and galactose, is identical, same formula, carbon 6, hydrogen 12 and oxygen 6 as a combination. There is no difference at all. Now come to the question of glucose plus galactose. As I told you, this together becomes a lactose combination. You can see the comparison is very clear how this is formed and how further differentiation comes up. Now comes the question of maltose. Glucose plus glucose is maltose, but in you see the formula is carbon is 12, water is 22, hydrogen 22, oxygen 11. That means instead of 24 hydrogen and 24 oxygen, you have taken one water out. So maltose is glucose plus glucose minus water. It's a dehydrated combination of glucose plus glucose. I think that makes it, that means in the process of making it, H2O has been removed, and that is what I want people to understand. Glucose plus fructose produce equal carbon dioxide is the one part. We will talk about it later. Now come to the question. Sucrose is glucose plus fructose and same combination as maltose. Maltose is one which is used as such to produce glucose plus glucose. Fructose will use only to give you glucose plus fructose together, but the formula is same thing as the maltose. Again, that means one water element has been removed. So now you can understand why carbohydrate is only water, water, water. Hydration or dehydration is the concept which has to be understood. Then come to the lactose. Is glucose plus lactose is the same combination as that, but again water has been removed, H2 has been removed, and that is what it is all about. One galactose and lactose is the combination. I think once that is understood, you will know how you are going to expect the change which these will give it. And lactose is with the milk. An Indian cow, Kamadhenu, can produce a perfect A2 thing which is 1000 times better than any other cow in the world, and is a pure vegetarian, lives on grass, cellulose, and converts cellulose into milk as a lactose rather than, you can call it glucose or sucrose or maltose as such, and that makes Indian cow Kamadhenu is excellent in giving you the perfect milk which is just next only to mother's milk in the quality of as such. Now comes the question. Starch. Starch is made of long chain of glucose molecules that are bonded together through covalent bonds called glycoside bonds. Typically starch is referred to as a polysaccharide, monosaccharide, disaccharide, and is a polysaccharide because it compares multiple sugar elements, and here it is only glucose plus glucose put together is changed, and then many things go as such, and I think that makes starch is nothing but glucose, glucose and glucose only, no fructose, no galactose. Now this is the structure of polysaccharide. A glucose plus minus water is again same process, but in this you have removed the water. You can see at the middle part how the water has been removed, and that is what I wanted people to understand, the how the carbohydrate is either adding water or rehydration or dehydration as such. Now the benefits of honey I am talking about. There are 10 different benefits of the honey which I consider very clear. It is probiotic in nature, and blood sugar regulation is done, and a beautiful and healthy skin can be produced, antibacterial, antifungal infection, and soothes thing, reduces ulcers, boosts memory, helps in seasonal allergies, and also provides nutrients, and also treat wounds and heals much fatter. So you can see the benefits of honey are phenomenal. But what is most important is honey contains 60% fructose and 40% glucose only. Let that be also be very clear. 60% fructose, 40% that is this, and these are the 10 benefits which are absolutely essential in honey as such. Now comes the question of glucose homeostasis, and this I have explained earlier. Let me just go through the process once again. The whole process starts from both either the breakdown of glucose into lactic acid or lactic acid or pyruvic acid to glucose again, both glycolysis, gluconeogenesis as that. What is important in this I want you to understand is starting the process of glucose as such, and how glucose is converted glucose 6-phosphate, and how that is first converted fructose 6-phosphate, and then how 3 carbon sugar, and finally into 3 carbon acetic. And I think once this is understood, you know very clearly how is important is this process of glucose in the plant kingdom as well as human body as such. And once you understand that, you will never have any difficulty in the process. You will be able to see the Divyank and its beauty with the perfection of 61.80 water and remaining solid, you can see. And once that is understood, you will never have any difficulty in answering any question, and you are getting center marks would be automatic, because you will not be making even single mistake. And to the best of my knowledge, all the books, research and other thing in the world would have to be changed with these videos. Once these videos become part, the entire world should study from this without even one difficulty. And I am glad to the divine nature having revealed Divyank to me over 60 years of contemplative studies from school, college to universities with excellence, exemplary, maybe exemplary every stage. And no wonder when you are in tune with universal consciousness within, and you are in tune, only then you know the perfection, and that is what we Upanishads were there. And now we go back to the same thing as the Brahmanic consciousness and give the perfect wisdom for the world. And once that is done, everything will be perfectly fine. Now coming to the picture, I am not going to talk about it. Anyway, I think I have given enough knowledge of detail step by step of creation of carbohydrates within this plant kingdom for perfection human being. That's enough, but we are going to build. But one thing, let me make it clear. You got to know from zero to perfect, step by step, everything in your brain. Only then you will be able to become a perfect human being, and I know every human being is capable of doing it. Its non-availability of cervix has been a problem. This will make you think the information given is wrong. This is correct one. This is what you have to remember. You don't have to remember anything other than that. Once that is done, I think our job is absolutely thing to make every human being as a Lokpalan, custodian, guardian for the benefit of the entire universe. And then the world would see the peace for the first time as a new Satyug once again. And that's it. Thank you very